The staff room was filled with warm morning sunlight. Eleanor Foster stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her uniform. A shiny badge on her chest read, Head of Cleaning. She had worked in this tall San Francisco office building for over 10 years, leading the cleaning team with care and skill. Miss Eleanor, you're early again, called out her coworker, Maria, as she walked in carrying a coffee. Eleanor smiled kindly. We have a big job today, she said, the 26th floor, Hartwell Corporation's executive boardroom. As she checked her cleaning cart, Eleanor also handed out the day's work lists to her team, moving quickly and efficiently. Everyone who worked with Eleanor respected her. She wasn't just good at cleaning, she cared about people, too. In the past 5 years, she had been recognized as an outstanding employee 3 times. The company's renting offices and the building trusted her completely. Before the team split up, Eleanor gathered them and said warmly, Thank you, everyone, for your hard work today. As she made her way to the elevators, heading toward the 26th floor, Eleanor glanced at her phone. No new messages. She sighed a little. A week ago, her mother had called to tell her that her younger sister, Vanessa, had gotten engaged, but Vanessa herself hadn't contacted Eleanor at all since then. Vanessa worked at a famous advertising agency. She had recently gotten engaged to Richard Hartwell, a rising executive from a big, powerful company. Eleanor felt proud of Vanessa's success, but also sad. Their relationship, once close, had slowly grown distant over the years. That evening, Eleanor decided to visit her mother's house. The house sat in a quiet neighborhood where Eleanor and Vanessa had grown up. After their father died young, their mother, Margaret, raised them alone. Margaret had always dreamed of a better life, of her daughters marrying into wealthy, important families. As Eleanor opened the front door, she heard voices coming from the living room. The wedding planner is working on 3 options for the seating chart, her mother was saying. We have to invite everyone Richard's father wants. There are a lot of business connections we can't ignore,
Vanessa replied.
Eleanor stepped inside. Hello, she called out. Both Margaret and Vanessa looked up, clearly surprised to see her. The coffee table was covered with wedding plans and documents. You should have called first, Margaret said, her voice sharp with irritation. Vanessa stood and gave Eleanor a quick, polite hug. It's been a while, she said lightly. Congratulations on your engagement,
Eleanor said with a small smile.
Mom told me. Is Richard Hartwell part of the Hartwell Corporation? Yes, Vanessa answered, her eyes bright with pride. He's Jonathan Hartwell's only son. His father is amazing, such a real gentleman. Hearing the name made Eleanor's heart skip. She worked in the same building where Jonathan Hartwell's company rented the top floors. She had never met him, but she certainly knew his name and face. So, when's the wedding? Eleanor asked. Next month, on the 15th, Margaret answered quickly. There's still so much to do. Eleanor nodded, but after a moment, she hesitated. I haven't received an invitation yet. When should I expect it? At once, the mood in the room shifted. Margaret and Vanessa exchanged an uncomfortable look. Well,
Vanessa began,
her voice trailing off. Margaret jumped in. We're still deciding about the invitations. Eleanor frowned. What do you mean? Margaret spoke carefully, like she had been preparing these words. The Hartwell family is very prestigious. In their world, appearances are very important. I don't understand, Eleanor said, her voice growing tight. Margaret sighed. Eleanor, your job, it's a bit of a problem. My job? Eleanor's heart pounded. I'm proud of my work. I know you are, Vanessa said quietly. We told them you were head of the corporate facilities division, Margaret said, waving her hand as if brushing away the truth. Eleanor stared at her mother in disbelief. You lied? It's not lying exactly,
Margaret said.
It's just saying things a little differently. Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Margaret pressed on, her voice cold and firm. We told the Hartwells that you had passed away. The words hit Eleanor like a punch to the stomach. You told them I'm dead? She whispered, barely able to get the words out. Margaret nodded stiffly. It was necessary. We can't have them thinking Vanessa's family includes a cleaning lady. This is Vanessa's chance to live the life we always dreamed of. Eleanor stood frozen, her chest hurt, and her hands were trembling. After a long moment, she slowly stood up. I understand, she said in a voice so soft it barely rose above a whisper. She turned toward the door. Then, without looking back, she said, I'm not ashamed of my work.
The real shame is a mother who is ashamed of her own daughter.
With that, Eleanor left the house, blinking back tears that threatened to fall. Outside, the cool evening air hit her face. She walked down the familiar street where she had spent her childhood, feeling more alone than ever. But deep inside, she also felt something else, something stronger than sadness. She felt pride. No matter what anyone said, she knew the truth about herself. She had built her own life with her own hands, and no one, could take that away from her. "I hope we get to talk again soon," Eleanor said softly, nodding her head. She felt her heart in turmoil even after Jonathan had left. On the morning of the wedding day, Eleanor decided to take the day off and spend it alone. The sky outside her apartment window was cloudy,
matching her mood.
She sat down on the sofa,
a cup of coffee in her hands,
trying to focus on the book in front of her, but her mind kept drifting back to the wedding. They must be starting the preparations right now, she thought. The wedding was being held at one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. Her mother and Vanessa were probably relieved she wasn't there. After all, they had made sure she wasn't invited. Suddenly, her phone rang. Eleanor looked at the screen and saw it was from Vanessa. She ignored it, but the calls didn't stop. One after another, her phone buzzed with calls from her sister, her mother, and even unknown numbers. What's going on? Eleanor thought, her worry growing. The phone rang again. It was Vanessa.
Eleanor took a deep breath and answered.
Eleanor.
Vanessa's voice was full of panic and crying.
"Where are you?" Vanessa asked urgently. "At home," Eleanor answered, trying to stay calm. "What's wrong? Please, come to the wedding venue right now." Vanessa was nearly hysterical. "Everything is falling apart." Eleanor was confused. "Why me? You're the ones who lied, who pretended I was dead." Vanessa's voice cracked. "Richard's father, he knows about you. He says he met you at the company last week." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. "Jonathan Hartwell." "Jonathan Hartwell?" Eleanor whispered, barely able to breathe. "Yes, he's angry we lied. He says he holds you in high regard. Richard is furious too. The wedding might be cancelled." Eleanor remembered the conversation she'd had with Jonathan last week. Maybe he had sensed something wasn't right. "Please, Eleanor," Vanessa begged, her voice trembling, "help me, you're my sister." Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of everything. "Until just now, I was your dead sister," she said bitterly. "I'm sorry," Vanessa whispered, her voice full of regret.
"I was wrong, but I need you now."
Eleanor could hear other voices in the background. Her mother was shouting something. "Mr. Hartwell says you're the most trusted head of cleaning at the company," Vanessa continued, her voice full of desperation. "He says we're the problem for lying." Eleanor sat down in her chair, feeling numb. "He said that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Vanessa continued, "he says a family that values honesty and hard work can't accept liars. Richard is starting to distrust me too." Eleanor's mind was racing. All the pride she had taken in her work for so many years, now, that very thing could save her family. She looked out the window,
where the sun was starting to peek through the clouds.
"Where is the ceremony being held?"
Eleanor asked, finally. Vanessa's voice brightened with hope. "At the Fairmont Hotel. The ceremony was supposed to start in an hour." "All right," Eleanor said quietly, "but I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth." After hanging up, Eleanor stood up and opened her closet.
She pulled out an elegant dress she had bought for a friend's wedding months ago but had never worn.
She took a deep breath, trying to calm the nerves that were swirling inside her. In the back seat of the taxi, she looked out the window at the Fairmont Hotel.
The grand building gleamed at the top of Nob Hill,
its historical beauty standing tall above the city.
"Please drop me off here,"
she told the driver. When she stepped out of the taxi, her heart was pounding with complex emotions. She was wearing a navy blue silk dress, and she had styled her hair with more care than usual. Despite how confident she appeared on the outside, inside, she was filled with anxiety. She pulled out her phone and called her friend, Sophia. "What's wrong, Eleanor?" Sophia asked, concerned. "I'm here, in front of the wedding venue," Eleanor said, her voice shaky, "but I can't bring myself to go inside." Sophia's voice softened with understanding. "Given everything your family has put you through,
it's no surprise.
But remember, Eleanor, you are a woman of value.
You take pride in your work.
You've always been honest. Don't let your family's vanity make you lose yourself." Eleanor smiled, wiping away a tear. "Thank you, I'm going in now." She hung up and walked into the hotel lobby. The chandeliers sparkled above her, and the marble floors echoed with each step. When she reached the reception desk, she asked for directions to the wedding. Grand ballroom, the receptionist said. As Eleanor made her way toward the ballroom, she could feel the tension in the air. Guests were standing outside, whispering to each other, looking confused and anxious. When she got closer, their conversations stopped. She approached an elderly woman and asked, "Excuse me, is this the Foster Hartwell wedding?" "Yes, but, you are Eleanor Foster?" the woman asked, staring at her. "I'm the bride's sister,"
Eleanor replied.
The woman's eyes widened, and she hesitated. "Oh my, you are. There seems to be a problem inside. The ceremony might be postponed." Eleanor nodded, and without saying another word, she pushed open the doors to the ballroom. Inside, she saw her mother and Vanessa, both looking distressed in the center of the vast ballroom. Vanessa was wearing her wedding dress, her eyes swollen from crying. Margaret, her mother, was dressed elegantly, but her face was hard with worry. Across the room, Richard and his family were gathered, looking just as tense. Jonathan Hartwell was there, too, standing with his arms crossed, his expression serious as he spoke to Richard. When Eleanor stepped into the room, her mother noticed her immediately. "Eleanor," Margaret shouted, her voice a mix of surprise and anger. Vanessa turned around at the sound of her name, and when she saw her sister, she rushed toward her. "Big sister." Vanessa's voice was a mix of relief and fear. The two women reached her, and both whispered urgently. "Why did you come? You'll make everything worse." "You called me," Eleanor replied calmly. "But it might be too late," Vanessa said.
Her face streaked with tears.
"Richard's family, they're angry because we lied." Margaret grabbed Eleanor's arm and hissed, "You're going to ruin everything. Leave."
Now.
Eleanor gently shook her mother off.
"I'm not running away anymore," she said with quiet strength. "It's time to face the truth." She walked toward the Hartwell family with determination. When Jonathan saw her, his stern expression softened into a small smile.
"Miss Foster,"
he said, stepping toward her, "So, you are alive after all." Richard and his mother turned around, their expressions filled with confusion. "Mr. Jonathan," Eleanor said calmly, "it's an honor to meet you. Thank you for the other day." "I don't understand,"
Jonathan said frankly.
"Why would your family try to hide you?" Eleanor took a deep breath and stood tall. "I'll tell you the truth. I lead the cleaning staff at Hartwell Tower. I take pride in my work, but my family felt differently. They were ashamed of my job and pretended I was dead." The room fell silent. Richard looked at Vanessa, stunned. Vanessa couldn't meet anyone's eyes.
"For 10 years.
I've worked at Hartwell Tower, keeping your building clean and well-maintained," Eleanor continued. "I was honored to hear that you appreciated my work." Jonathan nodded. "You are one of the most valued employees at our company," he said. "Why was there ever a need to hide that?" Richard stepped forward. He was tall and handsome, with a thoughtful expression. "I'm disappointed in my fiancé's family for lying to me," he said, his gaze softening as he looked at Vanessa. "But I respect you for being honest now." Jonathan looked at the Foster family with a stern expression. "We Hartwells value honesty and hard work above all," he said firmly. "We cannot ally ourselves with a family that lies." Margaret's face turned pale as she stepped forward. "Mr. Jonathan," she began, her voice faltering, "please, consider my daughter." "Mom," Eleanor interrupted quietly, her voice steady, "let's stop the lies." She turned to Vanessa, who was looking up at her with tear-streaked cheeks. "Vanessa," Eleanor said gently, "I don't want to ruin your happiness.
But there's no future in a relationship built on lies.
Richard seems like a wonderful person. You should be honest with him." Vanessa covered her face with trembling hands. After a long pause, she looked at Richard. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice small. "I was embarrassed." Richard frowned, confusion still in his eyes. "What were you embarrassed about?" "Social status, money," Vanessa whispered. "I didn't know if my family would ever measure up." Richard smiled softly. "I never cared about that. I fell in love with you, not your family's wealth." After a brief silence, Jonathan spoke again. "Our family was working class until 3 generations ago. My grandfather was a factory worker. We earned our place through hard work and honesty." He turned to Eleanor with respect in his eyes.
"It's people like you,
who take pride in their work, that I truly respect." Margaret looked up at Eleanor. For the first time, There was a flicker of regret in her eyes. "I was wrong," she said, her voice strained. "I was wrong to be ashamed of your work. I've failed as a mother." Eleanor was taken aback by her mother's words. After years of being ashamed of her profession, Margaret was finally acknowledging her mistake. Richard took Vanessa's hand and spoke with certainty. "The wedding will be postponed," he said.
"But this isn't the end."
"We have a chance to start again, with honesty." Vanessa nodded, her face tear-stained but relieved. "Thank you," Eleanor said quietly, a small smile forming on her face.